Let's break this down. The first positive case is found earlier this month at Word of Life Church in Blenheim. The pastor shut down the church last Thursday after people became ill. That week, a blood donor clinic was held in Chatham, attended by someone who tested positive that attended the church. 150 people told to isolate because of a potential exposure, 2 people testing positive. Just yesterday, another outbreak declared at a congregate living facility, 2 more people testing positive for the coronavirus. Today, there are 3 people hospitalized in Chatham, Kent with COVID-19, all 3 connected to the original outbreak at the church, according to the health unit. And as of this morning, 32 people with active cases of COVID-19 in Chatham, Kent, 30 of them tied back to the church in Blenheim. And we find our Katerina Georgieva standing just outside of that church. Kat, what's the mood like today?
Well, Chris, some people are definitely spooked by what's happening, and all of this started at the church that's right behind me here. Some people are shocked. Some people are worried about what this means for their community. One storefront owner who I spoke with is actually closing up tonight given the outbreak. He says he's doing it voluntarily as a safety precaution, and he'll do it for as long as he needs to. Now, some people aren't quite as concerned, but it is fair to say that this is definitely a sensitive subject. Some people were a little bit nervous to comment, especially if they had friends who are parishioners of this church. Now, here's what some other members of the community had to say, starting with a man who runs a shop right next door.
It is very scary. We live in very close, tight community here, and when you see this knocking at your door, it makes you very worried about what's going on. I wish there's no harm will happen to the people who did have the disease. And I wish, people around this area to be more concerned and take more precaution.
Worried, I guess you'd say. Like, is it going to get us all, or is it just going to get a few? As of the last week, I've been staying indoors a lot more, or staying close to home.
It's sad. So it is. It's really sad. And that just knowing that if you don't do what you're told, they could spread it to other people and their families, and it could be a heartbreak after that.
And we heard about precautions there. What more are you hearing from public health officials about this instance?
Right, so Chris, the medical officer of health, as you said, he says this is a rather large outbreak. He also said that from the contact tracing interviews that they have done with members of the church, health guidelines were being followed.
They were respecting physical distancing rules and so forth, and paying attention to hand hygiene. But I note that it's a storefront church that is very small inside, and we know that that crowding can make a difference, and that singing can make a difference. Obviously, there was a breakdown in precautions somewhere along the line.
Chris, the church is closed right now. They closed up when the outbreak first started last week, and they will remain closed for a couple of weeks. Now, we did hear from the pastor of the church. He messaged CBC over Facebook, and he said that right now they are in the middle of the situation, so they won't be releasing any kind of statement until everything is done. But at this moment in time, they're continuing to support one another, pray for one another and their community. Chris.
Thanks, Ms. Katerina. The CBC's Katerina Georgieva live in Blenheim tonight. Now, Dr. Colby mentioned some of his concerns about what happens inside of a church. Those are concerns shared by an epidemiologist that we spoke with this afternoon, who also says the number of cases connected to this are likely to rise.
Is sort of a quintessential super spreader type event. So we know that there have been large numbers of cases associated with large gatherings of people, which is, what it sounds like happened here. And the challenge with those sorts of events is that you can have subsequent chains of transmission. So you have an initial exposure, for example, in a church setting, but then those cases can go on to infect other people. And so you would expect over the next couple of weeks that you're probably going to continue to see more cases that are associated with this super spreader event. It's really the convergence of closed spaces, so indoor spaces, spaces where people are crowded together, and when there's a lot of close contact happening. So, In the situation of some previous events that are like this, one of the things that's been noticed is that there's lots of singing happening, for example. So the virus spreads more readily when people are talking loudly or singing.
Meanwhile, in Windsor, Essex, 6 new cases of COVID-19 announced by the health unit this morning. Late this afternoon, news that dozens of students have been sent home after being exposed to someone with a confirmed case of the virus. Here's what we can tell you directly from the Windsor Essex Catholic District School Board. There's a confirmed case at St. Anne French Immersion Catholic Elementary. It's closed down one class at the school. 31 students were sent home. 24 are from that class. 7 others were on the same bus as some of those students. The health unit has also sent a team to the school, according to the board. Nurses are working with parents, creating a list of students and staff who may be directly affected. The school board says that if parents were not contacted by the health unit, they are not close contacts, and students should stick to their normal routine. Former Kingsville Fire Chief Bob Kistner's appeal to reduce his prison sentence was denied this week. Last year, Kistner was found guilty on 9 of 17 charges, including 4 counts of sexual exploitation, 5 counts of sexual assault. He was sentenced to 5 years in prison. His lawyers had abandoned an appeal to overturn Kistner's conviction, but were hoping to reduce his sentence. Police in Windsor aren't laying charges after a man was struck and killed at Wyandotte Street East and George Avenue earlier this month. Police say that they reviewed surveillance video from the area, spoke with a number of witnesses, and say that they are not anticipating any charges against the driver involved. They also say that that investigation is still ongoing and that the collision and the man's death was avoidable. A Walkerville restaurant wanted to give diners a unique experience, keep people warm this winter by offering a patio option as the pandemic continues. But today, the health unit says that their dining dome is a no-go. Jacob Barker with more.
Some call them domes, others call them bubbles or pods. No matter what you call them, they definitely catch the eye, and they've been popping up outside restaurants all over the place in other cities in Ontario, New York, and now here in Windsor.
We had a good patio run there for it, but some people still want to sit outside and feel safe, right? They're not ready to go inside yet, so this was just another avenue, another way we could get people in the door.
When Vito's Pizzeria saw the idea, they jumped on it. They say they spent thousands purchasing 3. Their hope was to give customers a new experience for a new season.
I feel like they're kind of safe because they're in their own little bubble area, and it's good for us for our employees too, get more staff on, more people on, and just keep working hard at it.
Vito says customers were excited about the idea and had the weekend booked up already. On Saturday, there was a waiting list. But today they got a call from the Windsor Essex County Health Unit.
Right now they're telling us we're not sure exactly, but they're saying maybe not to use it or just trying to find out exactly what's going on. But we did purchase all these bubbles. We have 3 of them, so to not use them would be a pretty big investment not to be used. But we want to comply with the health unit to make sure they are safe and all the proper protocols done.
Well, in an email to the CBC, the health unit says the structures do not comply with their outdoor dining rules. It also says there are safety codes and bylaws to consider. And while it did not get into specifics of the issues with this dome, in its rules it does say that at least 2 full sides of a covered outdoor dining area must be open, and it recommends having at least 3 meters height for things like canopies or tents. Disappointing for the restaurant for sure. They're hoping they can find a way to use them.
We wanted to use them. We thought they were a cool venue, cool little thing to do, so we were hoping that would work, but right now they're saying we can't use it, but we're going to kind of see what happens, I guess.
The restaurant did want to stress they will go along with what the health unit says and that they wouldn't want to do anything that would put people in jeopardy. Jacob Barker, CBC News, Windsor.
The downtown Windsor Farmers Market has found a way to extend the season. They'll have another 6 weeks after finding some shelter in the city. As CBC's Tamina Aziz reports, it's welcome news for vendors feeling the pinch of the pandemic.
Usually, the downtown Windsor Farmers Market would operate here on Polisher Street and Maiden Lane. But now it's moving here to the ground floor of the Polisher parking garage. The chair of the downtown BIA says it's due to the market's success that led to its extension.
We've proven over the last, several months that we can overcome pretty much anything and make this market work. We started this in the middle of the pandemic. We handled it safely.
Ward 3 Councillor Reno Bordelin says the market brings people together and supports local businesses. He also says parking won't be an issue. There's plenty of space downtown.
We sometimes have the conversation about this need for parking, and yet we don't give people the reason to come down and drive their cars down to park in the first place. So, this isn't a chicken and the egg situation. This is, you definitely need something like the farmers market first, parking comes second.
In a controversial decision, the city demolished retail units 2 years ago, evicting business owners and converted it into parking spots. That parking space is now going to house the market. One vendor says it relies on the market to keep her business going.
If I want to grow, this is the best opportunity Windsor has to offer for growth. There's really no other way to do it.
Another regular vendor says it's because of the market that's allowed him to open up his shop 3 years ago.
It is a huge lifeline for a lot of the businesses down there, and for us personally, a wonderful chance to stay in front of that downtown crowd and get 6 more weeks out of the season.
The market will look a little different. You can expect to see more Christmas-themed products, and up to 40 vendors will be featured. The market runs until December 12th. Tamina Aziz, CBC News, Windsor.
They're just going. Every day is a new thing.
I always feel like I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow.
Our day-to-day here became much like a command center.
Wondering what it's like to manage a public health crisis? We've heard from 3 people this week that have been working flat out with the Windsor-Essex County Health Unit, sharing their stories of long days, hard sacrifices, and dealing with the unknown. They tell us what the last 7 months have been like, and tonight we hear from a manager of Healthy Schools, what it was like to prepare for a safe return to classrooms for thousands of students, and how the handful of cases in schools have been handled.
The safety of our children is my top priority.
It feels like forever ago, the day Premier Doug Ford canceled the school year.
It is clear that we cannot open schools at this time. I'm just not going to risk it.
As soon as they were closed, work started to find ways to reopen.
That's what we've learned from this pandemic, is that we are flexible. We are flexible. We know what needs to happen.
In August, the constant was change. New guidelines, new protocols. By September, schools in Windsor-Essex reopened. Within days, the first classroom case of COVID-19 was announced. Joanne Higazi helped put protocols in place, and she knew she had to be on the ground for whatever came next.
Being there and then thinking to myself, now, will we get a bunch of positives tomorrow? And it didn't happen, and that felt really good. That felt really, really good.
3 cases at schools in Windsor and Essex County. Higazi proud the protocols have prevented outbreaks.
It's a new process. And, we debriefed afterwards. We talked about it. We put processes on paper. But again, it's an unknown. And the next case that comes up is totally different. And, it's a different experience.
She's also worked to bring a group of new school nurses up to speed while juggling changes at home, too. Family kept apart, major moments missed, and now the new normal.
We also have a family Zoom, but then we made the rule that we don't talk about COVID, and we assigned everybody, every week something else to talk about. But the reality is we still have to change the way we do things.
But as much as things change, some things still stay the same.
I always feel like I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. I come into work not knowing what tomorrow will bring, and that has been since March. I remember waiting on a Saturday to see whether or not there was actually going to be a positive. Well, now it's kind of that same feeling, sitting and thinking, on the weekend even, will we have a positive? And like I said, I commend everybody that is doing and following the infection prevention measures. They are working now. I have not been able to let down my guard. It has been pretty much the same feeling. I come into work today that I came in. The only difference is the confidence. I am confident in these infection prevention measures. I'm confident in the team that we have at the health unit. I think that we have been responding very well. I think that, again, our numbers are showing that we're able to try and isolate the cases and respond appropriately.
That's a wrap on our 3-part series there. For more on what it's like to be somebody who works with public health during this crisis, such as a health inspector handling thousands of calls, or the experience of a contact tracer, a COVID detective, if you will, while the cases climbed, you can find all of that on our website. Just go to cbc.ca/Windsor. Something to note here, COVID tests will no longer be available at the St. Clair College Sportsplex. Windsor Regional Hospital is going to conduct its last scheduled test there tomorrow. Moving forward, if you need a test, they're going to be available at the Olek Campus Assessment Center. The hours there, 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. on weekdays, 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. on weekends and statutory holidays. Tests still need to be booked in advance. You can do that online. You can do it by phone. Officials say same-day tests can be accommodated at current testing levels. Another look outside here at some of the fun and fantastic front yards that you've been able to notice out here in Windsor, Essex. Colette Kennedy brings us the forecast after the break. Joining us now for a live look at the weather is Colette Kennedy. A bit breezy out here today.
Yeah, a little bit breezy, but still managing to get up there into the double digits, you know. But yeah, it's kind of almost feeling like a wind chill, although generally we don't talk about that unless we're in the negative. So, but we're getting to that time. I have to say it. We're getting there closer to when we're going to be talking about the wind chills just a day or so away. Let's go ahead and look at those readings. Not hanging into the double digits for Windsor anymore. 9 degrees now. Chatham-Kent at 10, and still looking at that breeze coming in there mostly from the northeast. Also, frost advisory again tonight, looking at that stretching all the way from the Niagara region, all along the north shore here of Lake Erie, down towards the Chatham-Kent region and up towards Sarnia. So again, I know until we get really a hard freeze, we still look at these areas where we have that risk of getting some patchy frost, and just know that potential is certainly there for tonight. Just a few little areas with a tiny bit of moisture meeting with some cooler air, especially aloft. So even at the surface, if we have our temperature above freezing, we can see not only just some showers, but we also can get into that opportunity, shall we call it an opportunity, where we get some wet flurries making their way to the ground. Even again when the temperature's above freezing. So we have that potential tonight, and even for a portion of the day tomorrow, that they can hold together as a wet flurry as they're coming through tomorrow. So I'm going to show you that in the forecast. I did just want to broaden the perspective, showing you the moisture. This is what's happening with the remnants of Hurricane Zeta meeting with some cold air. So they'll be looking at some significant snowfalls into parts of New York State and over towards Vermont and into Maine as well. But this moved, it's the only good thing I can say about it is at least it moved very, very rapidly. So our outlook, yes, some of that cloud cover, and it's very, very light in nature. It's going to be hard to pick up on radar, but you can see there's enough there that we could see, especially from Sarnia down through Chatham-Kent, where you have the best chance of seeing a few of these wet flurries in here, or even a little bit of a light drizzle. So that potential there, not just tonight, but even into the day tomorrow. By later on in the day, we are going to see a general clearing, and the chance for Windsor, by the way, is going to be closer to 30%. It'll be a little bit higher, just a tiny bit further east. But we do get into the sunshine as high pressure will build in, and not only are we going to be seeing that later on Friday, but we got that overnight, the high pressure, Friday night into Saturday. That's when we get into some of that cooler air coming in here. But Saturday, some sunshine as well until the next system starts to arrive later on, second half of the weekend. So there you are with those isolated showers or flurries and the patchy frost as well. The highs tomorrow, we may get a little bit warmer than this, but because of that cooler air aloft, some of that colder air pushing in here, this is why I'm being a bit conservative with the daytime highs. Certainly a departure from today, although again, the winds made it feel cooler. Saturday, warmer, 9. Yes, it's Halloween, dry, sunny. These are all good things. Clock's back as well, Chris, so we gain that extra hour. And then Sunday, when that next system comes in with some of that cooler air, then as well, we're looking at that chance for seeing kind of a mix or getting into some wet flurries lingering into Monday morning.
Spooky.
It is a little scary.
Just
kind of early.
A little early.
It'll be November by then.
I guess that's true. Thanks for this, Colette.
You're welcome.
Speaking of November, events have changed because of the pandemic, and that includes Remembrance Day. How that's going to go next. A first-of-its-kind development to help mitigate flooding in Windsor is finished.
As we experience those record high water levels and the danger of overland flooding, combined with what used to be 1 in 100-year storms, which have now become several times a year in terms of intensity.
This right here is one of the hardest hit areas for flooding back in 2016 and 2017. Today, the city announced the completion of in-ground work at the park to help manage surface flooding. Catch basins have been removed from the parking lot, and instead, rainwater is going to trickle into the ground so that less of it gets into the city's sewer system. Officials say that this low-impact development project's never been tried before in Windsor. The COVID-19 pandemic is affecting the Remembrance Day and poppy sales here in Windsor. Services will still be held, but no spectators this year. Only participants that are allowed to attend in person.
You don't have a choice of words for it, but it was disappointing when I read in the paper that they're only going to have, what do you guys call it, a virtual thing?
95-year-old Stuart Johns is a Second World War veteran. Now, he usually attends the services with several members of his family. Even though the organizers of the ceremonies won't turn away vets if they show up, Johns will stay home and watch on TV because he wants to avoid being exposed potentially to COVID-19. The restrictions are particularly difficult because it's also the 75th anniversary of the end of the Second World War. Meanwhile, the Legion will not have people selling poppies in person this year, something that they say will cut revenues in half.
I'm sure of it. The face-to-face spinning used to bring in about 50% of our revenue.
How much is that?
Last year it was over $20,000.
Now, poppies will still be sold in boxes on store counters. The Devonshire Mall and Costco, they're selling extra poppies so that the Legion is hoping could offset some of the loss. Now, they'll go on sale Friday. The Legion branch 594 on Howard Avenue will also be selling poppy masks, and that's going to start on Monday. It's 6:29 p.m., and that's it for CBC Windsor News. Don't forget, for news anytime, you can go to our website, cbc.ca/Windsor. We're on social media, too. You can check us out on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Power and Politics is up next. We're going to join that already in progress. Thanks for watching. Make sure you and your family have a wonderful night tonight.